Good evening, my students. This evening, first of all, I'd like to present our third lecture. It's about approaches and methods. Specifically, it refers to style, text, and frequency. Okay. The first thing that we want to describe today is about the problem of measuring style. So what the problem of measuring style is, and what kinds of the problem of measuring style. So in this slide, all of those will be explained specifically. So I hope every student will listen to it carefully so that you will understand the main point of each explanation. So I will start to describe about style itself. Style is regarded as a function of frequency. It seems reasonable to suppose that style can be measured. So style as one part, okay, of the problem discussed here is known as a function of frequency, so that it seems reasonable to suppose that style can be measured. Although when we read or what we call want to explore the style of some language features, it is not easy to understand them. But okay, some other styles still can be measured. So next, an example often quoted is that of Bernard Bloch, who defined the style of a text as the message carried by the frequency distributions and transitional probabilities of its linguistic features, especially as they differ from those of the same features in the language as a whole. So here, Bernard Bloch tried to define the style of a text as the message, especially carried by the frequency distribution and transitional probabilities of its linguistic features. So, as you can see and understand here, that style is included, okay, to become the features of linguistic itself and carried by the frequency distribution and transitional probabilities from its linguistic features. Okay, here he also differ. Okay, he also differ style from those of the same features in the language as a whole. Bernard Bloch tried to make the distinction between style and other linguistic features. So he wanted to make the spatial distinction or distinctive feature between style and the other linguistic features. With the definition, the message carried by the frequency distribution and transitional probabilities of its linguistic features. It is the definition proposed by Bernard Bloch, not Bernard Baer. Okay, Bernard Bloch. Okay. Bernard Baer is cartoon. Okay, a figure of animation. Okay. Such definition appeal to the empiricists who would like to reduce a subjectively perceived phenomenon to something objective. But they tend to alarm the student of literature. So based on the experience or the scientists known as the empiricists, okay, knowing by experience, who would like to reduce a subjectively perceived phenomenon to something objective, but they tend to alarm the student of literature. Okay, here, when we try to define the definition of style itself by having the experiences, it is defined as a subjectively perceived phenomenon to something objective. And mostly, the student tend to learn this in the literature. So when I convey the style itself based on the empiricists, it means that it is a kind of phenomenon or perceived phenomenon that what we call it reduced to a subjectively perceived the phenomenon itself. Okay, maybe here I'd like to make what we call it here the simplest one. So from the point of view of the empiricists, there is a reduction of the definition or less different from the definition of style proposed by Bernard Bloch. Okay. Next. Okay. Next slide. I'd like to emphasize more deeply about Bernard Bloch's formulation about style. The principle underlying Bloch's formulation is simple enough. To find out what is distinctive about the style of a certain corpus or text, we work out the frequencies of the features it contains and then measure these figures against equivalent figures which are normal for the language in question. The style is then to be measured in terms of deviation, either higher frequencies or lower frequencies from the norm. So, based on block formulation about the style itself, although style can be measured, okay, can be measured, it it has some deviations. Okay, it has some deviation based on his point of view, based on his point of view. Although style can be measured, it has, okay, it also has, okay, the deviations, either higher frequencies or lower frequencies from the norm of making linguistic linguistic appearance, a linguistic, what we call here, like I said before, features, okay, linguistic features, different from the norm of linguistic features. Okay, that's the main point of Bloch's formulation about style. Although it can be measured, however, it has the deviation, either higher frequencies or lower frequencies from the norm of linguistic features. Okay, and now we would like to view, or to what we call here, to capture the impressionistic statements about style. Okay, here we have the genre in what we call here, genre in English prose. It is one kind of genre, the impressionistic, okay, statement about style. We often read statements or suggestion that writer X favor is fond of, tends to use language feature Y. For example, that Hemingway tends to use short sentences, or that Johnson favors abstract vocabulary. Okay. Here, about the impressionistic, it is closely related to what we call here the favorable. The favorable. For example, Hemingway tends to use short sentences. So when you know the way of Hemingway make, so what we call here his work, okay, they tend to use short sentences. The use of short sentences here is called as the statement or suggestion that writer X favors is fond of tend to use language feature Y. Or maybe that Johnson favor abstract vocabulary. We can assume, okay, this one as the statement or suggestion that writer X favor is fond of and to use language feature Y. Okay, so this is one kind of impressionistic genre. And then second one, such statement may be based on strong conviction and close observation and may even be felt to be self-evident, but they appear to have no empirical status, are merely, we might say, guesses unless supported by frequency data. Okay, the second one in my slide, it tells about when when, for example, Hemingway here or Johnson make the impressionistic genre, they usually have, they usually put the statement based on strong conviction and close observation. And these are may be called as self-evident. Okay, the self-evident. Okay, next. Here, block type of analysis versus Hemingway's statement. So here, in this slide, I'd like to tell you about block type of analysis versus Hemingway's statement. Okay, as you may know, Hemingway's is one of the writer that focus in writing some process in English. So here, Block tried to analyze, tried to analyze his statement. Under Block's type of analysis, the statement that Hemingway uses short sentences amount to a claim that the average length of a Hemingway sentence is shortened to a significant extent than the average length of an English sentence. Something which can in principle be verified or falsified. So here, Block tried to criticize, the work or the statement from Hemingway's based on his theoretical framework about type of analysis. Okay, his statement here that Hemingway uses short sentences. So Hemingway likes using short sentences better than long sentences. Okay, and then the average length of an English sentence, something which can in principle be verified or falsified. So he find out that an English sentence used by Hemingway, what we call here, can be verified or falsified based on his theoretical framework on type of analysis. Okay, and then we turn to the average length of English sentence. So after discussing about Block and Hemingway, we now move to the average length of English sentence. To arrive at the average length of an English sentence, one should ideally amass a complete corpus of the language at a given period. So someone or somebody should ideally amass a complete corpus of the language at a given period based on the period given. And then leaving aside the problem of what time period to specify, we should have to ransack the libraries of the world to find a complete list of published works written during the period. So it is about the period of writing some works, especially in English prose. Here, what we want to understand is about the average length of an English sentence that is usually used based on the given period. Okay. So here we must to specify, we should have to ransack the libraries of the world to find a complete list of published works written during the period. So from period to period, okay, the average length of English sentence, especially in prose, uh, it is more or less depends dependent on what we call here as the given period itself. Okay, we move to block transitional probability. So block includes in the measurement of style transitional probability the probability that some form X will be followed by another Y. This opens the door to an infinity of combination of stylistic factors that might reasonably enter into a definition of a style. So Block also tried to include in the measurement of style transitional probability from, okay, the transition moves from some form X to another form Y. This opens the door to an infinity of combination of stylistic factors that might reasonably enter into a definition of a style. So here it is also known as the transitional probability caused by an infinity of combinations of stylistic factors. And then the second one is frequencies of word occurrences could be augmented. For example, by frequencies of word co-occurrences or collocations. This means that in addition to the separate frequencies of the words silver and moon, we should determine the frequency of their combination silver moon. Okay, from the word silver and moon, okay, we should determine the frequency of their combination silver moon. And it is called as the collocations. So once again, when you find out the compounds silver moon, okay, it is combined from the word silver and moon. And it is known as the collocation occurrence, yeah, a collocation occurrence or collocation phenomena. And then we have the uses of arithmetic. Quantitative stylistic as serving a role in the circle of explanation on the one hand may provide confirmation for the hunches or insight we have about style. On the other, it may bring to light significant features of style which would otherwise have been overlooked, and so lead to further insights. But only in a limited sense does it provide an objective measurement of style. So the first one of this slide is about the qualitative stylistic as serving a role in the circle of explanation on the one hand may provide confirmation of the hunches or insight we have about style. So in other words, quantitative stylistic try to count, okay? Try to count the circle of explanation. Here, one hand may provide confirmation for the hunches or insight we have about style. On the other hand, it may bring to light significant features of style which would otherwise have been overlooked, and so lead further insight. Moreover, the role of quantification depends on how necessary it is to prove one's point. So here, the role of quantification is mainly, okay, depended on how necessary it is to prove one's point. So one's point must be proven, okay, must be proven to find out the role of quantification. Style is such a complicated phenomenon that it would be impractical to demand hard evidence for every observation made. It may be sufficient for many purposes just to enumerate textual examples of the feature under discussion. So style here is also defined, okay, as a complicated phenomenon that it would be impractical, okay, to demand hard evidence for every observation. And also it could be used for many purposes just to enumerate textual example of the feature under discussion. Okay, the last one we have deviance, prominent, and literary relevance. The role of quantitative evidence can be understood more clearly if we look at the interrelation of the three concepts of deviance, prominence, and literary relevance. So, all of this will be described as follows. Deviance is defined as a purely statistical notion, as the difference between the normal frequency of a feature and its frequency in the text or corpus. Meanwhile, prominent is the related psychological notion. Halliday defines it simply as the general name for the phenomenon of linguistic highlighting, whereby some linguistic features stand out in some way. And the last one is literary relevance or foregrounding is artistically motivated deviation. Foregrounding may be qualitative, for example, deviation from the language root itself, a breach of some rule or convention of English, or it may simply be quantitative, for example, deviant from some expected frequency. So here, the role of quantitative evidence can be understood more clearly if we look at the interrelation of the three concepts. The first one is deviant, the second one is prominent, and the third one is the literary relevant. Deviant, like I said before, is defined as a purely statistical notion, the notion that can be counted, because it is in the form of statistical form. Okay, as the difference between the normal frequency of a feature and its frequency in the text or corpus. Meanwhile, prominent is the related psychological notion, okay, the notion that affect to the psychological condition. Okay, here Halliday defines it simply as the general name for the phenomenon of linguistic highlighting. Halliday defines it as the phenomenon of linguistic highlighting, whereby some linguistic features stand out in some way. So prominent has the other name as the phenomenon of linguistic highlighting. And the last one is literary relevance or foregrounding, is artistically motivated deviation. Okay, it is another form of deviation, or it is also known as an artistically motivated deviation. So, as we may know that literary relevant or foregrounding, okay, may be qualitative, not quantitative. Okay, the deviation from the language code itself, a branch of some rule of convention of English, or it may simply be quantitative. So foregrounding can be qualitative, can be quantitative. Okay. For example, deviant from some expected frequency. Okay. And the last slide is about the exercise. As usual, at the end of the presentation, you will have the exercise section. And this one, as usual, will be given as the assignment, okay, or your homework to make your understanding improve, okay. So that I will give this one to become your homework. And please check again the material given previously to find out the answers. Well, I think that's all for today. Is there any question before I end up the meeting or the lecture? So while I'm waiting your question, I'd like to send the link of the attendance. I think the material is quite difficult, so that I hope next week students will be able to, sorry, one group will be able to perform the presentation about the next material. Okay, and so that you can understand about the material presented easily, because you have read it, understood it, as well as you will present it in front of your friend or in front of the class. Have you got the material or the soft copy of this lecture? Okay, please check the book, read the book, and make the PowerPoint or the slides about the material presented next week. Well, I think that's all. I think some of you are still confused about the material given today. It's hard. It's quite hard to be understood, because it's about the way of expressing what we call it the prose in English. The prose itself has some kinds in defining its linguistic features, because prose poetry have different linguistic features. So you have to understand all of them philosophically or linguistically out of our what we call it ordinary knowledge. Okay. Well, that's all. Indri, do you have any question? Okay, I'm sorry. Well, that's all for today. I hope what I've described further will be beneficial or meaningful for you, although it is hard or quite difficult to be understood by the student who, uh, firstly, okay, know about the prose itself, especially about the elements of prose. Thank you very much for joining our lecture. See you next week. Have a good day. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.